Assessing hybridization rates between mottled and mallard ducks in Central Florida. Implications for conservation. My name is Kyra Molina, and this was prepared for IDS 3053 for Dr. Leah Gaines in the fall 2024 semester. Introduction and rationale. The mottled duck is the elusive mascot of Floridian wildlife, symbolizing the last bit of old Florida that remains in the face of rampant development. Once known as the Florida duck, it is the only native, non-migratory dabbling duck in the state, and genetically distinct from other populations of mottled duck found in the southeastern United States. Unfortunately, the mottled duck is threatened by a plethora of anthropogenic factors, from habitat destruction to water pollution. Of particular concern is a complex problem of hybridization with the feral mallard duck, a human-introduced species that spreads with development and thrives in urban settings. In Florida, where nearly half of the original wetlands have been lost to development, the risk of hybridization continues to rise. The research I propose here aims to estimate the current hybridization rates between the mottled duck and feral mallard in Central Florida. I aim to provide data on the proportion of mottled ducks, hybridized ducks, and feral mallard ducks in the area, as well as compare these proportions to historical records. This study will contribute to the ongoing research on the mottled duck and provide valuable insights into wildlife conservation, invasive species ecology, and population genetics. So here I have a picture of the mottled duck, pair of mottled ducks on the left, and here is a hen feral mallard duck on the right. And you can see the similarities between the two and some of the difficulties we may come across when identifying and distinguishing between them. Literature review. The mottled duck is a non-migrating dabbling duck species endemic to the Gulf Coast of the southeastern United States. There are two primary populations, one ranging from Alabama to Mexico down the Gulf Coast, and the other residing in peninsular Florida. The Florida mottled duck, once considered its own subspecies, is unique in that it is genetically isolated from the Gulf Coast population, with no evidence of interbreeding between them. Over the last several decades, the mottled duck population has declined, threatened by anthropogenic threats such as habitat loss, invasive species predation, and climate change. Intraggressive hybridization with the human-introduced feral mallard has become a leading threat to the species within Florida. Hybridization with the mallard duck has been found to threaten local populations of species within the mallard complex, with the potential to cause local extinctions through genetic dilution. Due to increased exposure between the two species due to urbanization and similar breeding ecologies, we can expect the current rate of hybridization to continue to rise with the further development of Florida. Due to difficulties experienced in identifying hybridized mottled and mallard ducks in surveys, many previous population estimates of the Florida mottled duck are considered unreliable. Recent studies have improved the field identification tools necessary to distinguish hybrids from mottled ducks, strengthening the validity of new surveys on the population. And here I had a diagram from the study by Ankney, 1987. Which established that black ducks, another duck in the mallard complex, similar to the feral mallard and the mottled duck, they were being threatened by hybridization with the feral mallard. And here we can see the increasing occurrence of mallard ducks is associated with the increasing occurrence of hybrid ducks, mallard duck x black duck hybrids in the area. 3. Purpose and research questions. So my question is, what is the current rate of hybridization between mottled ducks and feral mallards in Central Florida, and how do the proportions of each compare to historical records? Statement of interdisciplinarity and disciplines explored. Interdisciplinary studies involve the integration of perspectives and theories from two or more disciplines to address complex problems which are beyond the scope of a single discipline. My research question regarding the hybridization of mottled ducks in Central Florida requires interdisciplinarity to understand, address, and advance knowledge on this complex problem. There are multiple disciplines and subdisciplines that must be referenced for this study, but I will predominantly rely on ornithology, more specifically waterfowl biology in this case, and urban geography. I will be looking at the population dynamics of mottled ducks and feral mallard ducks, including the hybridization rates between them and the loss of pure mottled ducks in the Central Florida region. Urban geography will inform my research area, looking at Central Florida here, where urban adjusted feral mallard ducks have taken over as the dominating waterfowl species, which influences the population dynamics with the mottled duck. The integration of these two disciplines and their theories will build the backbone of my study and inform my methodology and intent of research. Conservation ecology, invasive species ecology, and population genetics will also inform my research. Theoretical framework. To understand the population dynamics of the mottled duck and feral mallard ducks in Central Florida, I will employ the anthropogenic decreasing biodiversity theory as my theoretical framework. The theory of decreasing biodiversity, built on the assumption that humans can continue to develop and interact with the environment, states that global biodiversity among flora and fauna will continue to decrease indefinitely. The decreasing biodiversity is fueled by the extinction of species which are selected against by human environmental factors, as seen in bird species which cannot drive or compete in an urban setting. This theory informs my approach of the mottled duck population dynamics, supporting evidence of causation between human development and the decrease of the mottled duck in Central Florida. I can focus on how anthropogenic forces leading to the spread of the feral mallard has created an inverse relationship between the mottled duck and the feral mallard population, raising concerns of extinction for the Florida mottled duck. Data collection. To analyze the proportion of hybridized mottled ducks in the Central Florida region, I will need to sample from the population of mallard complex ducks in the region. Since mottled duck X feral mallard hybrids are not recognized in harvest reports provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, harvest data from the upcoming season will be collected with differentiation between pure and hybridized species within the mallard complex. Using my connection to the Orlando chapter of Ducks Unlimited, a wetland conservation organization operated by local duck hunters, I will reach out to duck hunters within the Central Florida region to recruit participants in the study. Participants will be trained on mottled duck hybrid, and mallard duck ID using updated guidelines outlined by ornithologists. Hunters will be given logging sheets to fill out through the 2025 to 2026 waterfowl hunting season, where they will note the number of mottled ducks, mallard ducks, and hybridized ducks harvested. There will be a target sample size Hunters will be instructed to provide photos of each duck within the mallard complex harvested to reduce a chance of identification error and confirm hybridized individuals. Photos will be matched to logging sheets and analyzed for accuracy by an ornithologist from the University of Central Florida, who will be assisting me in the study. Data will be compiled in a spreadsheet with the number of pure mottled ducks, mallard ducks, and hybridized mottled ducks harvested in Central Florida during the 2025 to 2026 season. The use of harvest data to sample from the entire local population will be useful in estimating the proportion of hybridized ducks in the region. Data analysis. The data collection plan for my study will be used to produce an estimate of the proportion of hybridized ducks in Central Florida, based on sampling occurring during the 2025 to 2026 waterfowl hunting season. The survey will provide numerical data on the harvest of mottled ducks, feral mallards, mottled duck hybrids, and any other species within the mallard complex. Data will be compiled in a simplified spreadsheet displaying the number of individuals harvested and reported. The data will be compared to current estimates of the mottled duck and feral mallard population in Florida provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. If my data on mottled and feral mallard duck populations is consistent with estimates produced by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I can deduct that my estimates on the proportion and population size of hybridized mottled ducks will be accurate. As seen in previous studies of North American waterfowl populations, the use of hunter-kill data is both practical and accurate in estimating population size and population dynamics of hunted duck species. Discussion. In this study, we investigate the prevalence of hybridized mottled ducks in Central Florida using hunter harvest data and a widely accepted identification standard. We aim to collect up-to-date data on the understudied population dynamics between the Florida mottled duck and the introduced feral mallard, the hybridization of which threatens the future of the mottled duck. In the case that our findings reveal a larger than expected proportion of hybridized mottled ducks in the sample, when compared to previous reports provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we can conclude that rates of hybridization are continuing to rise between the two populations. The theory of anthropogenic extinction, where species of flora and fauna are becoming extinct due to human activities on a global level, leads me to expect this outcome. The implications of this study are not limited to the mottled duck population in Central Florida. The results could contribute to understanding the impacts of human activity on vulnerable species and how human development can alter population dynamics of local species. Results from this study could also apply to further research on waterfowl hybridization, on an ongoing area of concern due to habitat loss and development. Ultimately, these findings could lead to education and concern about the Florida mottled duck, resulting in action on behalf of saving one of Florida's most unique species. Limitations. This study will be limited by its geographic scope, where data will be collected primarily from Central Florida counties. This includes Brevard, Lake, Orange, Osceola, Seminole, and Volusia County. Central Florida is a focal point because of the large number of waterfowl hunters present and the presence of large waterfowl habitats seen along the St. Johns River Basin, the Indian River Lagoon system, and the large chains of lakes scattered through Lake and Orange counties. This study will also be limited to data collected by waterfowl hunters, which has the potential to skew results depending on their identification abilities and hunting habits. Although waterfowl hunters have been used in previous studies to analyze waterfowl populations with success, these factors must be considered in the results. Future studies can address the limitation to the geographic range by expanding to other regions of the Florida mottled duck habitat, or by simultaneously surveying the entire state if possible. Further research may incorporate the genetic testing of skin tissue of mottled ducks, feral mallards, and hybrids that improve the accuracy of population and hybridization rate estimates. Implications. As we become self-aware and look deeper into our impacts, we learn that we have irreversibly altered the planet's entire biosphere, and that we are amid a mass extinction event of flora and fauna because of human activity. We have begun to monitor and research the species most impacted and how our actions have directly or indirectly led to their demise. The proliferation of the feral mallard duck, whose preference for human-adjacent ecosystems has resulted in their success in unlikely places such as Central Florida, has created an indirect human impact on the native mottled duck. The research I propose regarding the level of hybridization seen between mottled ducks and feral mallards in Central Florida could support and contribute to the theories of anthropogenic extinction and novel pest species. As human populations increase and development intensifies, we could expect those species who thrive in these urban and suburban systems, such as the feral mallard, to also increase and intensify. Species not as tolerant to human development, such as the mottled duck, can be expected to decline in numbers. The results from my research would reveal current trends in the balance between the native mottled duck and the introduced feral mallard, contributing to research on the impacts of human development on the few wild endemic species that are left. Implications are focused within the disciplines of waterfowl ecology, hybridization genetics, and environmental studies. Conclusion. This study aims to provide insights into the hybridization of Florida's native mottled duck and the introduced feral mallard in Central Florida. Findings will provide an up-to-date estimate of the hybridization rate between the two species, with data contributing to and informing conservation efforts for the mottled duck. Using hunter harvest data in combination with the established identification methods, This research will track the proportion of hybridized ducks and determine whether hybridization is on the rise in Central Florida. If results indicate that hybridization rates are rising, it will confirm concerns about the genetic dilution of the model duck. Ultimately, results from this study will not only inform model duck conservation strategies, but also contribute to the fields of hybridization dynamics, invasive species ecology, and anthropogenic impacts on biodiversity. Implications extend far beyond this study, providing a framework for addressing similar challenges in other species facing hybridization threats due to human activity. Connection. As an environmental studies major with an interest in ecosystem management and invasive species ecology, this research proposal aligns closely with my academic and career goals. My coursework, such as animal behavior and Florida ecology and conservation, has provided me with a strong foundation in areas directly relevant to this research. The proposed methodology will give me hands-on experience in surveying waterfowl populations, assessing invasive species impacts, and collaborating with both biologists and stakeholders on a conservation project. Although my career goals may still be forming, I aim to be in a position where I can work towards protecting what's left of wild ecosystems in Florida. Having been born and raised in Central Florida, I have a deep appreciation for the region's natural spaces. The mottled duck, which inhabits the wildest of these areas, is my favorite animal and a symbol of the environment I hope to help preserve. References.